In a bustling city, there lived a young woman named Clara. She was known for her exceptional kindness, always putting others' needs before her own. Whether it was a friend needing emotional support or a neighbor requiring help with a task, Clara was always the first to step in. But beneath her generous exterior, Clara was slowly losing herself. She had become a shadow of her true self, consumed by the expectations of others, and her own well-being had taken a back seat for far too long. Clara's story began in her childhood. Raised by loving but demanding parents, Clara was always told that being good meant giving to others, that her worth was defined by her ability to make others happy. "A good daughter does everything for her family," her mother would often say. "A kind friend always helps, even when it's inconvenient." Over time, Clara internalized these messages, learning that her value was determined by her selflessness. As she grew older, Clara applied these lessons to every relationship she had. In school, she was the dependable friend who would always help with assignments, no matter how late it kept her up. At work, she was the employee who volunteered for extra shifts, always willing to go the extra mile, even if it meant sacrificing her own time. Her social circle admired her for her willingness to sacrifice, but no one truly understood the toll it was taking on her. Her friends especially took advantage of her. They would call her late at night with their problems, expecting Clara to drop everything to listen and offer advice. And she did, no questions asked. Yet, when it came time for her to ask for help, they were rarely there. Slowly, the exhaustion from always giving and never receiving began to eat at Clara's sense of self-worth. One evening, after helping her friend Rachel move into a new apartment, Clara found herself sitting alone in her small, cluttered apartment. Her back ached from the heavy lifting, and her mind was overwhelmed with the weight of everything she had to do for work the next day. She hadn't had time to eat, let alone relax. And yet, there was Rachel, posting photos of the move on social media, thanking everyone except Clara. Clara felt a pang of bitterness. This was the moment she realized something had to change. The next day, Clara's boss, Mr. John, asked her to take on another project, one that would require her to work late into the night for weeks. Clara, accustomed to always saying yes, didn't hesitate. But as she stood up to leave his office, her heart sank. Her body felt heavy, like it was protesting against the constant demands placed on it. That evening, Clara decided to take a walk to clear her mind. She walked aimlessly through the city, feeling the cool breeze against her skin. But the usual peace she found in solitude was gone. Her mind raced. Why do I always say yes? Why am I so afraid to disappoint others? As she turned a corner, she bumped into her old mentor, Mrs. Diana. Mrs. Diana had been a guiding figure for Clara when she was a young girl, teaching her that kindness was a gift, but it had to be given with discernment. They exchanged pleasantries, and Clara, though weary, felt a deep sense of gratitude towards her. "You look tired, Clara," Mrs. Diana remarked, her sharp eyes taking in Clara's frazzled appearance. "I am," Clara admitted. "But it's okay. I'm used to it. I'm always helping people. Always giving. That's what matters, right?" Mrs. Diana paused, her gaze softening. "I see you've been carrying a heavy burden, my dear. But let me ask you something. When was the last time you helped yourself? When was the last time you did something for you?" Clara blinked in surprise. She had never really thought about it that way. She couldn't recall the last time she had taken a moment for herself, let alone done something she truly enjoyed without feeling guilty. The weight of Mrs. Diana's question lingered as they parted ways, but it was not until later that night when Clara lay in bed that she truly began to reflect on her life. The next day, Clara woke up feeling different. There was a quiet resolve within her, a sense that she needed to stop living for everyone else and start living for herself. She could no longer ignore the hollow ache inside of her. The gnawing feeling that, no matter how much she gave, she was losing touch with who she really was. Clara started by setting boundaries. It wasn't easy, especially with her friends and family, who had become accustomed to her always saying yes. When Rachel called her again to complain about work, Clara said, "I'm sorry, but I need some time for myself. I can't help you right now." It felt uncomfortable at first, but as the days went by, Clara realized that saying no wasn't the end of the world. In fact, it felt liberating. She began to spend her free time doing things she enjoyed. Reading books she had always wanted to finish, exploring new hobbies, and, most importantly, taking care of her health. She started yoga classes and even took a weekend trip to the countryside, something she hadn't done in years. Her relationships began to shift as well. Her friends, initially surprised by Clara's new approach, soon began to respect her boundaries. Clara's mother, though initially upset, began to see the positive change in her daughter. "You've always given so much, Clara," she said one day, "but now I see that you're learning to give to yourself too." As Clara continued on this journey of self-discovery, she realized something profound. True self-respect wasn't about rejecting the needs of others, but about recognizing that her own needs were just as important. She didn't have to lose herself to help others. She could still be kind, but with limits. She was worthy of love, care, and respect, not because of what she did for others, but because of who she was. Years passed, and Clara's life transformed. She found a job that aligned with her passions, and her relationships became more balanced. Clara no longer felt invisible. She had reclaimed her sense of self-respect, and with it, a life filled with purpose and fulfillment. Clara's journey teaches us a powerful lesson. Self-respect is not something we can gain from others. It is something we must cultivate within ourselves. Often, we lose sight of our own needs in the process of caring for others, believing that our worth is tied to our ability to serve. However, true self-respect comes from recognizing that our own needs are just as valid and important. Setting boundaries, saying no when necessary, and taking time to care for ourselves are not selfish acts, but essential ones. When we respect ourselves, we invite others to do the same, leading to a life that is both fulfilling and balanced. Never forget, you are worthy of respect, love, and care, not because of what you give, but simply because of who you are.